Then we have another thing where Brittney Griner says that says something about that effing white girl. Now, can you imagine the outrage if Caitlin Clark said those things? Or was that Angel Reese, that black girl, was running?
The WNBA is engulfed in yet another issue that sums up everything that is wrong with the way the league handles its best star. An startling video seems to show Brittney Griner calling Caitlin Clark a white girl after she fouled out against the Indiana Fever. The league, which has benefited greatly from Clark's star power, is still ignoring the systematic harassment and targeting of the guy who salvaged their faltering team.
The post from Brittney Griner, and one thing I don't understand is that, like, there is some kind of flimsy evidence, I guess. Like, we're not lip readers. We're not lip readers. She probably says trash. Like, it sounds like she has said. It looks like what it apparently says is effing.
The events that transpired on Thursday night during the Indiana Fever's 81-76 victory against the Atlanta Dream were nothing short of shameful, but tragically, anyone who has been observing how WNBA players handle Caitlin Clark would not be surprised. A 22-year-old point guard who weighs almost half as much as Brittney Griner, the same player who was traded for the Russian Merchant of Death and created a global scandal, allegedly couldn't take being outplayed.
What she said, but the way people are taking it is that she said some very disrespectful stuff. Alright, so let's take a look at what she is saying right here. I'm not a lip reader, but it looked like right here she says, effing white girls. Oh man, effing trash, effing white girls. Effing trash right there. Effing white.
Griner struggled terribly throughout the game, scoring just 5 points in 25 minutes before being sent off after picking up too many fouls. However, cameras captured what seemed to be Griner mouthing the words trash and effing white chick in regard to Caitlin Clark, rather than leaving the court with the respect of a professional athlete. Take a moment to consider that. A seasoned athlete who ought to be a role model for younger athletes turned to racial epithets because she was unable to cope with being outplayed by a person half her size.
Now it appears that Brittney Griner has been caught on video. And yes, there's a certain amount of lip reading that's going on here, but I'll let you be the judge because I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to try to decipher what it is Brittney Griner was saying. By the way, she fouled out of a WNBA game against Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. She plays for the Atlanta Dream now. So here we go. Brittney Griner, who Joe Biden acquired 2 years ago and maybe the most lopsided trade of all time, this side of Deshaun Watson, was caught on camera saying what appeared to be some not very nice things about white girl Caitlin Clark during her little WNBA game last night.
Griner's apparent outburst is clearly visible in the video, which has since gone popular on social media. Even casual onlookers can perceive what appears to be happening, despite the fact that lip reading is not a precise science. This isn't some confused audio or gesture. Because she was unable to cope with her own subpar performance on the basketball court, this professional athlete appears to have used racial epithets at a teammate.
Did not watch the game in its entirety. Brittney Griner fouled out late in the fourth, and she was in foul trouble the whole game. The referees was definitely calling everything on her. Even though the Indiana Fever really didn't get a chance to shoot a bunch of free throws that game, they was making specifically calls against Brittney Griner, and she was getting frustrated about it, man. Now, footage has surfaced, a couple different takes on this clip as well as to what she actually said. Some people said she didn't call Caitlin Clark a effing white girl. Some people say that she said what a effing whack call. At the end of the day, she said something.
Please subscribe if you're having fun. The circumstances around this incident are what make it even more frustrating. With just 11 points in the win, Caitlin Clark didn't even have a great night by her standards. This was not an instance of Clark embarrassing Griner in front of a national audience by dropping 30 points. And this was just an instance of one player carrying out her duties while another utterly lost her cool and reportedly used words that would have resulted in the termination of any other employee from any other American company. The hostile atmosphere Caitlin Clark encounters every night she gets onto a WNBA court is exemplified by the fact that the Griner incident wasn't even the only controversy surrounding her in that same game. Clark and Ryan Howard got into a fight during the same game, which led to both players receiving technical fouls. In response to this event, the league fined both players $30, treating them as equally accountable for whatever happened between them. Take a moment to consider that. After considering a fight between their biggest star and another player, the WNBA determined that both parties should receive a $30 fine, which is the equivalent of pocket change for professional athletes. However, the league has been silent when Brittney Griner seems to employ racial insults against that same top player.
A lot of very, very racist women, right? These are racist women who were told that they were God's gift to women's basketball, that they are black, and because of that, they are better than white people in sports. That's the one area that they can succeed over white people in sports, right? And this is their league, right? Then you got a young, the stereotypical white girl, pretty, skinny, that's better than it comes into the sport and becomes the Michael Jordan, LeBron James of the sport. The face gets more publicity on one than they ever got in some of their playoffs, any of their games ever. Brings more money. They are extremely jealous and won't say it. They want to make it like it's typical basketball. But no, they have made it very clear. Angel Reese, the Brittney Griners. Nobody cared about their league.
When it comes to defending Caitlin Clark, the WNBA has come to be known for its selective enforcement and double standards. The league is ready to assign equal blame and impose equivalent penalties when Clark gets into any kind of physical fight, as if the player who has transformed their sport is somehow equally accountable for every unpleasant encounter she has. However, the league experiences a case of selective blindness when other players transgress boundaries that shouldn't exist in professional sports. When you take into account Caitlin Clark's financial contributions to the WNBA, the $30 punishment for the Howard incident appears even more absurd. This is a player whose mere presence has the power to transform a Tuesday night game into a cultural event, whose jersey sales have surpassed league records, and whose games regularly attract television viewership that other WNBA games can only hope to match. However, the league refuses to defend her when she is the victim of genuinely unacceptable behavior and treats her like any other player when it comes to discipline. The Griner incident and Caitlin Clark's general treatment are not examples of isolated behavior. It is a component of a systematic targeting strategy that is so evident that it is hard to overlook.
Another thing where Brittney Griner says that says something about that effing white girl. Now, can you imagine the outrage if Caitlin Clark said those things? Or was that Angel Reese, that black girl, was running from that? Why is it that the black players can be openly racist? There's investigation into racist comments, but you can be racist toward a white girl who is bringing all these eyes to the WNBA.
Now, Brittney Griner seems to be taking this targeting to a whole new level by using foul language to express her annoyance at Clark's achievements. This isn't trash talk between athletes in a competitive setting, because she can't take being outplayed by someone who embodies everything the league ought to be celebrating. This seasoned player seems to be crossing racial boundaries. It's easy to see the pattern. Players turn to stirring up controversy, fabricating drama, or, in Griner's case, seemingly using language that has no place in professional athletics when they are unable to match Caitlin Clark's basketball skill, drawing skills, or professional manner. It's similar to witnessing a bunch of adults become so enraged by a child's achievements that they turn to playground bullying, but these are meant to be elite female players competing at the top level of women's basketball. This pattern's increasing predictability is what makes it even more unsettling. You can nearly predict when the next fabricated controversy will surface every time Clark wins a game, hits another attendance record, or attracts new fans to the sport. Instead of concentrating on their own skills, some players seem to have made attacking Clark their main contribution to the basketball conversation.
That Bob Griner said trash, followed by fucking white girl. Now, like I said, I'm not a lip reader. I don't know what she said. But again, the perception is the only thing that matters. And the perception throughout the WNBA is players dislike Caitlin Clark because she's white. I think the main reason they dislike Caitlin Clark is because she's white and has elevated the league into the mainstream.
The WNBA's utter inability to defend the athlete who has contributed more to their league than anyone in recent memory is arguably the most frustrating part of the whole scenario. This same organization has witnessed Caitlin Clark turn their sport from a niche commodity to a cultural phenomenon. However, they don't appear to care as much about safeguarding their most important asset as they do about pleasing the guys that are after her. The league's lack of spine and priorities are evident in its silence over the Griner incident. Instead of confronting the footage that seems to show one of their players using racial words against their biggest star, the WNBA has decided to act as though it never happened. It's not just bad leadership. It is cowardly leadership that puts avoiding tough conversations ahead of upholding professional standards. Examine how other professional sports leagues respond to comparable circumstances. When you take into account the league's prior reactions to far less serious circumstances involving Clark, their inaction on the Griner incident becomes even more heinous. They were eager to place equal blame for the Howard altercation, implying that they are more than capable of acting when it serves their interests. However, they suddenly get paralyzed when they hear seemingly racist remarks made against their top player.
The thing is, I wonder what would happen if you catch one of the white players saying effing black girls. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would happen if Caitlin Clark was saying something around that way with her lips? Oh, the internet would burn down, fam. They will be coming at Caitlin Clark left and right. You already have some people, especially in the media, saying, oh yeah, Caitlin Clark always get these special whistles. She's this, she's that, race this, race that. So I can only imagine if she messed around and had a video that was close to something like this. Come on, fam.
From a financial standpoint, the WNBA made one of the most foolish choices in contemporary sports management by failing to safeguard Caitlin Clark. This isn't simply about doing the right thing morally, but that should be motivation enough. It's about safeguarding an investment that has revolutionized their whole sector. There is no denying Caitlin Clark's influence on WNBA attendance, TV ratings, and merchandise sales. It is a quantifiable truth that appears in all of the league's financial metrics. Her games routinely draw far larger crowds than other WNBA games. The best-selling item in the league is her jersey. Additionally, her participation has drawn media attention and advertisers that the WNBA was unable to purchase with their whole marketing budget. However, by permitting other players to foster poisonous conditions around their biggest attraction, the league appears intent on undermining the success. Targeting Clark becomes normal when players like Angel Reese can fabricate issues for months without experiencing repercussions, or when Brittney Griner can reportedly use foul language without being suspended. This strategy is not just immoral but also financially suicidal. For decades, the WNBA begged fans to care about their product, fought for television coverage, and struggled for relevancy. When Caitlin Clark shows up and resolves many of these issues on her own, the league fails to shield her from the players who ought to be appreciating her for improving their sport.
One person said, I will be reaching out to the WNBA to ask if Caitlin Clark, a trash effing white girl, violates its recent announcement, no tolerance for racism and no space for hate campaign. We'll report back. Now, that is interesting because we know that they've been pushing their whole campaign about racism, attacks, and all these different scenarios playing out in the W.
The corporate community has an innate understanding of this idea. When an employee significantly raises the profile and worth of your business, you shield them from hostile work conditions, toxic behavior, and workplace harassment. You don't let other workers attack them without consequence while acting as though you have no obligation to uphold professional standards. Brittney Griner's suspension would involve more than just penalizing one athlete for misbehavior. It would signify the WNBA's ultimate decision to create and uphold professional standards that safeguard all players, particularly their most valued ones. The league has a chance to declare that racial language has no place in professional basketball under any circumstances. Think about the message that a ban would convey to the entire league. It would inform athletes that using racial epithets to disparage other athletes will have far-reaching repercussions, not simply on social media. It would show that the league will not put up with conduct that would be unacceptable in any other professional setting, and that it takes workplace harassment seriously. More significantly, it would demonstrate to Caitlin Clark and other players that the WNBA is committed to upholding professional standards and shielding its players from antagonistic conduct. This has nothing to do with giving outstanding players preferential treatment. It concerns fundamental professional behavior that ought to be applicable to all people, irrespective of their social standing or level of popularity.
At WNBA, what is your current policy on respect to fellow players and racially motivated hostility? Yeah, I mean, what are we doing here?
Caitlin Clark's treatment serves as a microcosm of all the issues with the WNBA's positioning and talent management. The league is prepared to let players who improve the sport become targets for irate rivals who can't match their effect or success, rather than honoring and defending them. This strategy hurts more than just Clark personally. It harms women's basketball as a whole. When the biggest star in the league is subjected to ongoing harassment and targeting without the league taking action, it conveys to young girls that being successful will make you a target rather than a cherished accomplishment. It teaches children that it's normal to undermine someone by fabricating disputes and acting inappropriately, rather than putting in more effort to equal their accomplishment. This strategy has long-term effects that go much beyond any single instance. The WNBA runs the risk of fostering an atmosphere where gifted players may decide to pursue other options rather than endure systematic abuse if it permits its stars to be singled out without consequence. Additionally, it runs the danger of offending the new supporters that athletes like Clark have attracted to the sport. Instead of watching reality TV drama, they came to witness basketball brilliance.
Happens when a white girl joins a majority black league. Her coming to the league brings more viewers, more ad money. The Caitlin Clark tide is going to, if embraced, rise all boats. The majority in the league, which is black women, has done everything they can to not welcome Caitlin Clark to the league. Why? There has never been any cost for black WNBA players.
The WNBA is at a turning point as a result of the Brittney Griner affair. The league has two options. Either it continues on its current course of selective enforcement and cowardly leadership that puts avoiding tough choices ahead of upholding fundamental professional conduct, or it finally establishes professional standards that shield all players from inappropriate behavior. Griner's ban would make it very evident that racist remarks have no place in professional basketball and that the league takes players' safety seriously. It would show that the WNBA maintains uniform standards for all players, regardless of their standing or level of popularity, and that success on the court does not justify improper behavior. However, doing nothing would validate the suspicions of many onlookers.